Hello, everybody. My name is Kim Yutani, and I am the Director of Programming of the Sundance Film Festival, and I will be moderating the Q&A today, or tonight. Thank you all for staying, and I would like to bring up the actresses that you just saw. I'll first introduce to you the actress who played Susan. Please welcome Susan Ziegler. And then the actress who played Mabel Todd, please welcome Amy Seimetz. Welcome, Amy. And finally, of course, somebody who needs almost no introduction, please welcome Molly Shannon, who played Emily Dickinson. Thank you. It's so great to see all of you. I guess I just want to start off by saying that it's really meaningful me to be here to do this Q&A because even though we didn't show this film at Sundance, it wasn't ready. I've been a fan of the filmmaker Madeline Olnick for many, many years. We've shown pretty much every single one of her films at Sundance. And I think this is, I have to say that I think this is my favorite film of hers. I think that it is her strongest film. It is sort of the culmination of all of her work in one really beautiful piece. So I'll just stop by saying that. Since we don't have Madeline here, there's usually something that Madeline says about the film. Kind of the genesis of it, and more of the kind of research part of it. I'm wondering if any of you can talk about that first before we dig into more.
Well, she worked very closely with the scholar Martha Nell Smith, who researched Emily Dickinson for her thesis, and so I think what Martha noticed in her when she first started researching was that there were all these letters that she'd submitted to Higginson, but then there were many, many more submitted to Susan. So that's initially where she was like, wait a minute, there's, and then really started looking into that. And, but Martha, I actually had dinner with her last night, and she was saying that she spoke to people in Amherst where she was doing her research, and there was a very don't touch that, because she kind of said what she was heading toward, what she was thinking, that Emily Dickinson was a lesbian, and I guess the woman said, be careful, watch yourself with your research, be careful, like that, which is really interesting. Yeah, so, yeah. Yeah, keeping it so secret. Yeah.
And just also, Madeline talks a lot about Madeline talks about the erasures of and maybe I don't know. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I think that with this, do you want
Sure.
to yeah.
I was obsessed with Emily Dickinson when I was in college. And when I've known Madeline for years because our shorts played at festivals. I'm a director as well, and so our shorts played at festivals. And she one day was like, I'm going to put you in a movie one day. And I'm like, okay, but I'm directing. And then she came to me with a project, and she was like, I want to put you in an Emily Dickinson movie. And I started quoting Emily Dickinson. And she was like, you're not playing Emily Dickinson.
That's funny.
And I was like, okay, never mind. She was like, Molly Shannon is. And then I was like, well, that's even better. Okay. But then she was like, but you're playing Mabel Todd, who is the reason we know who Emily Dickinson is. and you have to think about the period of time when these women were existing. And I think it's awful, but we have to think about, we always have to contextualize history in general of like motivations and human beings and their motivations of putting things forward. So Mabel Todd was trying to bring Emily Dickinson's poems forward, but she also understood that we lived in a time where shock, women on women, wasn't accepted, and then also trying to spin that in a way that people would accept it. And so she was like she spun this narrative of not just that these love poems, like masculinizing some of the feminine elements in these poems, but also this narrative that she never wanted her poems to be published. It'd be so crass for a woman to want her words out there. Yeah, why would we? But at the same time, she was this PR. She also is an important figure in feminine history who also was the reason that we know who Emily Dickinson is. So it's very complicated in a way, which
It really is. But she had to make up that story that Emily Dickinson didn't want to see anyone, because it wouldn't make sense if she only didn't want to see Mabel. So she made it that she didn't want to see anyone.
Yeah, because
Right?
who wouldn't want to see Mabel?
Yeah.
Amy, you talked a little bit about how you came to the project. Susan, you have been a longtime collaborator with Madeline, and tell us more about how you came to make this film with her.
Kind of by surprise. I've known Madeline for decades, since college, and we've worked together. She was a playwright and in a lot of her plays, and I've been in her like 3 of her other films and stuff. We've worked a lot together, and then I knew she had written this play, Wild Nights with Emily, and she just asked me whether or not I wanted to. I was like, yeah, of course I want to play Susan Dickinson, but I didn't really realize how much of a soap opera it basically is. I mean, it's like you can't make it up, and it's all true. And yeah, that's usually what Madeline does with me. She calls me up and says, "Oh, I'm gonna make this film. Do you want to just do this part or something?" I really don't. I just trust her so much that a lot of times, well, most of the time, all the time, actually, don't really know what I'm saying yes to when I say yes. But she's that type of director who I trust her storytelling, and she could literally make me do anything. But it's a good thing she's not here.
I think she has made you do.
Yes, I think she has.
And Molly, you go way back with Madeline,
Yeah,
too.
we go way back. Madeline and I went to NYU drama school together, and I thought she was amazing. At the time, she was directing and writing a comedy review show. It was in the Black Box Theater, and I think it was my last year at NYU. And so I auditioned for it, and she cast me and Adam Sandler, and a bunch of other people. And I remember we had rehearsals when we were first starting, and it was a kind of show where we did impressions of the teachers, and it was at midnight. It was like the comedy show at midnight. There was a line around the block. But for the rehearsals, she was like, let's just be, do this exercise where you walk through the door and make up a character, and I'm going to play a really snotty director, and you're going to be somebody, whatever audition, trying to impress me. And so I just walked in the door, and I was like, "Hi, I'm Mary Catherine Gallagher," and she ended up just making me like do somersaults, and then I kept developing the character, and then she ended up developing the whole show around Mary Catherine Gallagher, and so it was great. So I went from doing very serious drama at NYU to people telling me like, "You should be on Saturday Night Live from Madeline's show." Isn't that wild? And Dan Jenks produced it, and it was also David Weinsack and Michael Sayers, and it was just wonderful. So I knew then how brilliant Madeline was. I was like, I love the way she thinks. She's just so funny and smart. So we reconnected again years later at Sundance, and she came to me with this movie, and she said, I want you to play Emily Dickinson. I was like, what? You know, I couldn't believe it. But Madeline used to say that she wanted to be the Emily Dickinson of comedy. So funny. Funny.
Right. I'm curious how each of you kind of approach your roles, because you're playing real people who we have a sort of an idea of, but what kind of work do you do to dig into this character?
Well, it's funny. You just, when you're playing something, a character that's historical, you first start thinking, oh, research and all this stuff. And what it comes right down to it, at least with Susan, is she's just a woman in a corset. She's in love with this other woman, and you just play it moment by moment. There's nothing like, she's just like me and you, and there's nothing like special, I think, in the sense that you do. I mean, you know all the history and all that kind of stuff, but when you're acting, you're just playing the situation, the circumstance in that moment. So it's not really a flashy answer, but it's just coming right down to the essence of what's going on.
But we also trust Madeline.
That's She studied with Harvard research, and she's just like a hotbed of a real hotbed of research. So hot.
So you lean into that, right?
Yeah, she knows.
I mean, I was lucky. Mabel wrote all of the books.
Yeah.
And she also published, like, they were also flourished with these, like, long passages of how she came to know Emily, and then she published her own, like, love letters with Austin, and just really wanted everyone to know how great she was. So, like, so for me, it was just, there was a ton of stuff already, you know.
Well, and I could just make up anything because nobody knew who Susan was.
Yeah, because I erased you.
Yeah, thanks. Came in handy about 100 years later.
I was going to say, I think it's interesting because I feel like even currently in this day, I'll walk by a magazine stand and I'll see like the cover of like the National Enquirer, like Julia Roberts is dying, or like Jennifer Aniston is heartbroken in her house because Justin Theroux laughed, or like Angelina Jolie is trapping the kid, she's a monster. You know what I mean? It's like we really hold on to these, why do we need to perpetuate this like victimhood of women? Like I do buy it sometimes, Kim, when I ask myself, why am I participating in this? You know what I mean? But I was going to say, I think Madeline would describe just really what she was doing was that all this information was hiding in plain sight. It is so obvious that she was writing, from the time they were schoolgirls, erotic letters to her lover, Susan. We are telling the truth about Emily Dickinson's life. Make no mistake. This is not a theory. This is based on evidence, and our Martha Nell Smith studied this for years and years and years and years and years. So that's how Madeline and I know Martha look at this, to kind of really get the truth out about her story, that she was an LGBTQ hero. Yeah. An icon, a trailblazer. She was fearless. She somehow came out of obscurity in the mid-1800s and became a part of the literary canon. She's a fucking genius. Yeah. So how about that?
True that.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I just lost my train of thought. I think that something about Madeline's work is that she's a comic genius, and a lot of the films are like kind of representations of Emily Dickinson have been very like grave and serious. Obviously, you knew that there would be some comedy injected into this. Was she explicit about this? I mean, I think it's in the script, but also, I think all of you bring something to that. Yeah. Susan, you know from working with Madeline for all these years.
I mean, basically, again, going back to trusting Madeline, she's one of those directors, not every director, but where she can tell me what to do, and even if I don't understand it, I will do it because I trust her so much. I trust that if it doesn't work, it's not going to be in there. She's only going to use what's working, and a lot of times I'll do something that she suggests, and I'll like, oh God, yes, she has a very specific vision, and that doesn't mean that she doesn't take, she's not inspired by what the actors do, but she has a very specific vision that you can see in all of her films, how she tells a story and how she gets that story out without beating anyone over the head, which makes it more effective. And so I don't know if I just answered your question.
You can tell she comes from theater. Because I have these long passages that are, we shot all of the scenes that without breaks. I was never on set with you guys. but without breaks. I was doing a speech. And so I'm doing this long speech, and she can be, and what's interesting is that she's incredibly specific about how things are delivered, but then suddenly she'll just yell out to me, improvise. And I'm like, oh, this is 19th century. I'm on the cusp of millennial. I guess I was born in 1981. That's still a cusp, right? I don't know. Yeah. But still, but you know what I mean? Like I'm just like, improvise, thou shalt wait. What? I don't know. And then, but that she likes that awkwardness. Yeah. And I appreciate that so much, because when she does that, there's so many takes where I do look confused. And then she'll use it, and it works, and I appreciate that as a director myself, where it's just like, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. And then she'll use like some bewildered look that I'm using after I've memorized 17 pages of shit. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think, because she explained to me that she was like, I think you would be great at playing Emily Dickinson because, you had to work hard to make it in comedy, and, you were up against similar things as her. And I think Emily Dickinson, like in that scene with Higginson, Madeline sees that as like her auditioning for Higginson. And, like, what about this and what about this? And she's trying really hard. But I think the idea that has been sold about her, that she was a recluse who was afraid and spoke to people behind walls and peered out the window looking at funerals and didn't want to be published or wanted her poems burned upon her death, it's just so defeating, because when you think about that this is what we were sold, it's such a terrible thing for women, because it was as if she was so passive and this creative force but didn't want to do anything about it. It's just such a bad message for women today, or anybody. And it really wasn't true, Yeah.
Well, I think that's the way they had to sell the work. Like you could either be a great writer, produce work outside the home, and be miserable, or you could have kids and a marriage and a house. Like you couldn't have both.
Yeah.
And you also had to make success and work outside the home look unattractive to women so that they wouldn't try to achieve. And that's, it's still kind of going on today a little bit.
Is there kind of
Just kind of going on.
And Martha Nell Smith said that the interesting thing was that not so much pushback about her being a lesbian, but there was more pushback on the attitude that Susan, her lover, was her #1 reader and creative collaborator. People were like, really rejecting that because it would be such a lively relationship, right?
And Susan was a writer herself. She continued writing. She actually wrote Emily's eulogy or obituary, and so yeah, she was a published writer in her own right.
So is Mabel.
Yeah, whatever.
I think we have to start wrapping things up, but I want to say something to you, Molly. That this is part of something. Part of this film is very special to you because your daughter is in the film.
Oh yeah, my daughter's in the film, and my little son. He played one. My daughter was a little girl with the long red hair, who's Maddie Dickinson, who delivers the letters, and that was like her first movie because I wanted her to work with Madeline. I was like, you're working with the best, this amazing female director. So I'm so proud of her. That's why I was videotaping the audience because I wanted to show her. I was like, look at all the people who are here. She's in San Francisco with a friend of hers. But she's 15 now, but she was little when she was in the movie. But yeah, it's so sweet. And my son, Madeline, got him for one day, and then he was like, I don't want to do it anymore. I just want to play. But yeah, it's so special.
Yeah, that's great. Any last words from you?
Well, for me, it's just such an honor. I think we all feel the same way about Madeline. Clearly, we think she's just unbelievable and so special. But to be able to tell this story just means so much to me personally. To be able to uncover her life for truly what it was is just, I don't know, it made me feel like something about this movie just gets me so choked up. Like it means so much to my heart to be able to tell her story. And every time I see the end, I just cry and cry. And the fact that her history was erased and now we can have the opportunity to tell the truth, it just means so much to me as an artist. And I'm so proud to be in it, you know.
I mean, there's that. Yes, I mean, I hate to tread on that because that was so well said.
Go ahead.
But I also, I feel, as a creator myself, there's a lot of for women who are creating and also just in power positions and feeling that their voice should be heard. I find myself constantly apologizing in some way. And it's just like innate in me, and I think about that when I see the history that I learned in high school, and the women writers that were there that should feel so fucking lucky that anyone heard their voice, you know, like, and that you should apologize or feel so humble, and you shouldn't. You're equals, you know, and that if I had known, going back to what I said earlier, being such an Emily Dickinson fanatic when I was younger and quoting Emily Dickinson when I met Madeline, that if I had known that she wanted her words to be out there and that she believed in her words, then maybe I would have been a nightmare. Let me think. Well, I mean, no, but I would have. But I would have just I would have had a little more self-confidence, and I wouldn't apologize for certain things of being so bold, you know.
And I think what's I think what's also so inspiring is to look back at a woman who didn't apologize actually because. She said, I want to write. I don't want to get married. I want to wear just this plain old white dress. I don't care. You know what I mean? And she didn't really make any apologies at that time. And instead of looking at feminism as being something that started, you know, with the pill, basically, it's been going on for quite some time. We just have to peel away the lies that have been told. Hidden histories, and women's history is one of those history, you know, history belongs to the victors, and we haven't been the victors, but now we can uncover the truth. So, anyways.
I just want to say I think that the work each of you has done in this film is really incredible. I love this film, and thank you for being here and for letting me do this.
Thank you,
Thank
Kim.
you.